Bryan Kramer is a traitor and national enemy of sovereignty and statehood of Papua New Guinea as independent country. Bryan Kramer and his accomplices have brought in and illegally set up a refugee camp in Manus Island. Bryan Kramer and his accomplices has breached our constitution, broke our laws, our bylaws, and procedures by establishing Manus Island refugee camp without the national government consent or agreement. Papua New Guinea is a sovereign state, an independent and sovereign state. No one can come in to Papua New Guinea to establish an affairs of other country without the mandated leaders' approval, the parliament's approval. Setting up of refugee camp in Manus Island was unconstitutional. There was unconstitutional according to the constitution and laws of Papua New Guinea. There was no parliament sitting. There was no votes taken on the floor of parliament. There was no consensus at the floor of parliament to establish a refugee camp. There was no law passed in the parliament. In order for a refugee camp to be established in Manus Island or elsewhere in Papua New Guinea, government must convene to have parliament sitting to make laws. They must pass a law or an act for refugee camp to be established in Manus Island or elsewhere in Papua New Guinea. So establishment of a refugee camp in Manus Island was illegal, and that was constitutionally it was a crime. It was amount to traitor and amount to felony. And Bryan Kramer and his accomplice did not took into account our laws, our constitution, as the independent state of Papua New Guinea. We are a country of our own. Papua New Guinea is a country. That's why they call it country, because we have a sovereign state. We have a statehood. We are sovereign. We are independent. So they have disregarded. And when you look at the Paladin security contract, the way they contract the Paladin security to provide the security in Manus Island refugee camp was also illegal. In order for any government contract or government entity to contract a contractor to provide a service, there has to be a tender process involved. That is by law. They have to publish the contract on a Post Korea on the national, so that Papua New Guinea companies can apply for a tender to meet a procurement requirement, so that they can be selected to provide services in the government run programs. So Paladin security bypass the tender process, the procurement process, bylaws, and laws that govern that surrounding the issuance or engaging contractor to provide services to the government programs. So Palatine security is a fraud. And when you look at some of the issues that is happening at Manus Island refugee camp, Bryan Kramer and his accomplices have put those refugees on a high risk. Their life was put on high risk. And that is inhuman treatment. And Bryan Kramer and his accomplices must be held accountable. Bryan Kramer and his accomplices must be held accountable for the injustice that was done to the refugees in Manus Island refugee camp. That is inhuman. That is not moral. That is, you are treating human beings like as second-class citizens or lower than human beings or same as the animals. Bryan Kramer and his accomplices must not be proud of what they have done to those refugees. And the Supreme Court of Papua New Guinea say that the establishment of Manus Island refugee camp was illegal. And that is true. Papua New Guinea does not have a law. The law says that we will establish a refugee camp anywhere in Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea Constitution does not have a law for processing refugees. Papua New Guinea law does not have a law that allows the establishment of refugee camp here in Papua New Guinea or elsewhere in Papua New Guinea. So establishment of Manus Island refugee camp was unconstitutional, and it was breach of sovereignty and statehood of independent country called Papua New Guinea. The patriots of Papua New Guinea must know that Bryan Kramer is a traitor and the national enemy of sovereignty and statehood of Papua New Guinea. And those of you who love Papua New Guinea as your country, now you must know that why Isaac Obama has been against Bryan Kramer from the beginning is because Bryan Kramer and his accomplices have bypassed the laws of this country and treating Papua New Guinea as another autonomy of Australia by disregarding our constitution, our bylaws, by establishing Manus Island refugee camp without a government concession or without parliament sitting to pass the law to govern the activities and transactions and budgets and lives of the refugee camp which was held in Manus Island refugee camp. Bryan Kramer is a traitor and national enemy of statehood of Papua New Guinea because Bryan Kramer does not represent the interest of Papua New Guinea, but he only represents the interest of colonial masters to control our development policy, to control our taxation, to control our resources, our businesses. That's what Bryan Kramer represents. And one clear example is how colonial masters still think that we an autonomy of their territory is the downsizing of the military of Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea army has been downsized to 2,000. How can 2,000 soldiers provide a security to the country and protect the country that involve more than 8 to 15 million population? Papua New Guinea military does not have a state-of-art military equipment to protect our military. That's why Chinese give us the old armored vehicles just to boost our spirit of being independent. That is the clear example Papua New Guinea must see. Another example Papua New Guinea must remember, and always not forget, always must remember, is Manus Island refugee camp. Bringing in Manus Island refugee camp and establishing Manus Island refugee camp in the independent and sovereign state of Papua New Guinea proves that Papua New Guinea is not independent. If Bryan Kramer and the colonial masters and his accomplices can do that without parliament sitting, without law passing the floor of parliament, without laws being made to provide security for the refugees and to govern the activities and transactions and budget of looking after refugees, that proves that Papua New Guinea is not independent. And Bryan Kramer just want that. And I will tell Papua New Guineans that you must always remember that those people who are betraying our laws and breaching our constitutions and bypassing our bylaws and procedures are the traitors and national enemies of Papua New Guinea's sovereignty and statehood as independent nation. This message must be sound, loud and clear to those educated Papua New Guineans, lawyers and constitutional lawyers, that if I am wrong, prove me. Prove me. One of the people who have always fought against illegal establishment of Manus Island's refugee camp is the most honorable Belden Nama, the most honorable, vibrant and the most honorable men that always fight for the patriotic and the spirit of Papua New Guinea and the freedom of Papua New Guinea, Mr. Belden Nama. Papua New Guinea need more people like Belden Nama. Papua New Guinea need patriotism. We are an independent nation, so remember, people who betray our laws and our constitutions and disregard our sovereignty and independent state as independent country, as a state, as an independent country, are the traitors and national enemies of Papua New Guinea sovereignty and statehood. I may be speaking broken English to explain to you, but I'm going to spark a brain. I will spark a brain for a young, uprising generation to remember this. And I am fighting for that right. I am fighting for a dream of Papua New Guinea. I am fighting to establish the truth. And we all Papua New Guineans have roles to play. So remember this. Remember this, what I'm saying. Bryan Kramer is a traitor and is a national enemy of sovereignty and statehood of Papua New Guinea as independent country. God bless Papua New Guinea. My name is Isaac Opehema, and I approve this message.